Why do most marketing strategies stop working after a while? The truth is, your current audience already knows what you do. They've seen your posts, they've read your emails, they've heard about what you do. The ones who are going to buy have probably already bought by now. So what happens? You keep showing up in front of the same familiar faces, but the truth is, you don't have a visibility problem. You have a new audience problem. You need to get out in front of new audiences. Today, I'm going to show you how podcast guesting helps you borrow other people's audiences without paying for ads, putting forth a bunch of effort, spending a bunch of time or money. And we'll talk about why it works and exactly how to turn those interviews into paying clients. You might be thinking, I'm doing all the right things, so why am I not getting new clients? It's because of what I call the 3 stages of audience growth. Stage 1 is your immediate circle, your friends, your family, your past clients. They buy because they know you. That's how most of us get started. And then we move into stage 2, which is warm referrals. That's the clients that refer you or your network introduces you to their network. You're still benefiting from that borrowed trust. And then stage 3 is brand new audiences. And this is where most people get stuck. You need to reach people who've never heard your name before, but who have the exact problem that you solve. And this is where it can get really hard and also really expensive because ads cost money, speaking takes time and travel, SEO takes months and months to actually work and a lot of money, and cold outreach can feel kind of icky. That's exactly where podcast guesting changes everything. You get in front of brand new qualified audiences without the cost or the hassle. So how does podcast guesting actually solve that audience problem? Think about it like this. Every podcast host has already done the heavy lifting. They've built a loyal, engaged audience that already trusts them. Then you show up as a guest and you instantly borrow that trust. Their audience tunes in on purpose. They're not scrolling, they're actually intentionally listening. And if your topic matches what they care about, you've got their full attention. When the host introduces you, they're basically saying, I trust this person, so you can too. That kind of endorsement is worth more than 100 social media posts. And here's why the format works so well. It's conversational. It's not salesy. It feels very, very natural. People get to know you through stories and examples, and you're talking about what you're passionate about, and that is magnetic. And there's no competition for attention. It's just you and the host. They are fully locked in. You are literally inside their ears. One interview can reach hundreds or thousands of new people, and it lives online forever. Unlike social media, where things come up for the day or the week and then they go away, podcasts really stand the test of time. They are there forever. And when someone is searching for it, you're going to come up. A great podcast interview can be repurposed. You can take clips of it and share it or post it or quote it. You can feature it on your website. And then it also builds relationships. This is really one of my favorite things about podcasts that I did not expect. I've been on a lot of podcasts and I've met a lot of podcast hosts, and a handful of those have become really good, dear friends. And we've had very fruitful working relationships and even longtime friendships. So when you build relationships with podcast hosts, it can lead to more invitations down the road. Invitations to come back on the podcast, invitations to come teach inside their community, all kinds of things that you're not even thinking about or are going to arise. So how do you turn a podcast listener into an actual paying client? It's a simple 4-step funnel. Step 1 is your guest appearance. You're going to share your best stories, your best insights, your best teachings on the podcast interview. And the host is really going to position you as the expert. And then at the end of that episode, you're going to end with one clear next step. That's your main call to action. So step 2 is your website. That listener has just spent 45 minutes getting to know you. They're really warm and they're really resonating with what you have to say. You're going to send them to your website. At the end of that interview, send them to your website and make sure your website is set up to sell for you. When that new person lands on your website, it should continue the same story. It should be congruent and in alignment with all the things that you talked about on the episode. And the website that you have really needs to show them exactly how to work with you. And then step 3 is the sales call. So they've already spent time with you on the podcast interview. They're resonating with your website. And your website is going to encourage them to book that sales call with you. So these are people that feel more familiar with you. They already trust you. They're going to show up to the call. They're not kicking tires. They're actually ready to invest. And then step 4 is getting that new client. The podcast did the heavy lifting before you even got on the call. How incredible is that? When I started focusing on podcast guesting, really everything began to change for my business. Number 1, I became much more confident. I was practicing talking about story all the time, and I got really good at it. I stopped chasing cold leads. Everybody that comes my way is warm now because they have spent time with me via a podcast. People start booking calls saying, I heard you on that podcast and I knew you're the one that I had to work with. That is the power of podcasting because it creates trust and connection before you ever meet. So here are some things you can stop doing once your podcast guesting starts working. You can stop spreading yourself too thin across multiple social media platforms. You can stop talking to the same exhausted audience over and over. You can post less on social media. You can spend less or nothing on ads. You can repurpose your podcast content instead of constantly creating new stuff. You can skip the networking events and cold DMs because when your message is clear and your story connects, you don't have to chase clients. They actually find you. Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of how we can actually make this happen. Step 1, identify your ideal audience. Who are they? What podcasts do they listen to? What problems are they trying to solve? Step 2, find the right podcast. So search Apple or Spotify or Podmatch. Start small. 500 loyal listeners beats 50,000 random ones. So the bigger the podcast is not always better. When you find a podcast that's truly aligned with your ideal audience, it's much better to focus on that than like some of the bigger name podcasts. Step 3, write a great pitch. So here's where you reach out directly to the podcast host. You want to make it personal. You want to reference an episode that you listened to that you really liked, and you want to offer 3 topics that really add value to their audience. Make it easy for them to say yes. Step 4, prep for success. Have your stories ready, have your talking points ready, put them in a Google Doc and pull that Google Doc up before you get on the interview. Practice how you talk about what you do, and also practice how you're going to say your call to action at the very end. Don't give them lots of calls to action at the end. Just very simply say, you can go to my website, share the domain address, spell it out for them, and tell them, once you get to my website, click on the blue button to book a free call with me. And then step 5, repurpose your appearances. So share them everywhere. I share my podcast episodes. Of course, they're on, Apple and Spotify, but I also repurpose them on my website. I feature them on my website. And then for every episode that I'm on, I create a blog post that shares that episode and has the transcript of that episode. That way, I don't have to write blogs and I can show the Google algorithm that I'm talking about this stuff consistently. And so the algorithm likes that. And that's just another kind of bonus way to use each episode. Remember, you're having real conversations about the work you love. So the host does the selling and you just get to show up and share your story. So here's the catch. Podcast guesting only works if 2 things are true. Number 1, your messaging has to be clear, has to be crystal clear. You need to be able to say what you do in a way that makes people lean in. Your story needs to connect emotionally. Second, your website has to be set up to convert. When somebody hears you on a podcast, and then of course they're going to go immediately to your website, when somebody lands there, they should instantly see how to work with you. And your website needs to be building trust and converting them over to booking a call with you. If those 2 things aren't dialed in, people will say, great interview, and never actually reach out. And that's where my signature story selling system comes in. It helps you clarify your story so it does the selling for you on podcasts and on your website. So here's the takeaway. Stop squeezing juice from the same tired lemons. Get in front of new people who actually need what you do. Podcast guesting is one of the smartest, most efficient ways to grow your business without doing more marketing. And if you're thinking, this sounds amazing, but I'm not sure my message or my website are strong enough to convert listeners, that's exactly what I can help you with. You can book a money-making messaging call at reddoorstories.com. We'll make sure your story and website are ready so every podcast appearance turns into clients because your next client is already out there listening to a podcast right now, today, waiting to discover you. Now let's make sure they can find you.